Tech, as I mentioned, pushed back big time on the travel ban the first time around and is back again. Among the first to react, Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky tweeting, "Travel ban was wrong from the beginning, still wrong today." Airbnb's co-founders released a statement saying, "We are profoundly disappointed by the Supreme Court's decision to uphold the travel ban, a policy that goes against our mission and values. To restrict travel based on a person's nationality or religion is wrong. We believe that travel is a transformative and powerful experience, and we will continue to open doors and build bridges between cultures around the world." Chris Lehane joins us now. He is the head of global policy and communications for Airbnb and a former White House official in the Clinton administration. So you worked in the White House under President Clinton. You became a tech exec. In your position as a tech executive, what is your reaction to this?
Yeah, well, I think, what Brian tweeted, our CEO and our founders have talked about, really is getting specifically at what our concern is. And this is just based on our philosophical values. If you look at the history of the United States, core and fundamental to our history has been the sense of travel. Travel has always advanced the human condition. And we're now in a time period where you're having travel bans, controversies about children being separated from their parents, conversations about building walls. And that is fundamentally inconsistent with what it means to be American, about the American experience, about American democracy. And if you look at the course of human history, right, whether it's migration, whether it's immigration, whether it's exploration, whether it's innovation, travel has always been at the center of that. And so we do think this is really a fundamental question about whether we want to continue to move forward as a country or whether we want to go backwards. And so for us, this really doesn't involve our business from a dollars and cents perspective, but really involves our values. And I can't help but think that on this day, 55 years ago, in what was then West Berlin, President John F. Kennedy gave his memorable speech about tearing down walls. And today you have this Supreme Court ruling, the Statue of Liberty is crying.
You also had quite a strong statement about the family separations. The co-founders of Airbnb said ripping children from the arms of their parents is heartless, cruel, immoral, and counter to the American values of belonging. The U.S. government needs to stop this injustice and reunite these families. We are a better country than this. You're matching donations to the International Refugee Assistance Project. You've been hosting guests, actually, as part of your refugee program. How many people have you hosted as a result of that?
So we've been on this for several years now, really beginning at the end of 2016. We did an ad around the Super Bowl, made a series of commitments, including the housing, 100,000 displaced people, I think well over 11,000 at this point, contributed $4 million to help support refugee efforts. Today, we're announcing that matching program with the International Refugee Assistance Project. And so, for us, it's not only about speaking up and standing up, it's also about, putting action behind it. We are a community-based platform. You know this. We have 5 million plus listings around the world, and we work with our host community to help open up homes for people who are displaced. And we're going to have more to say about this, as we go forward, because again, for us, this is a values-based issue. But to the extent that you even want to talk about it from a business perspective, I mean, think about what's happened, in this country over the last year, right? You've seen travel go down. Travel's 10% of our global GDP, similar in the United States. There's 100 million jobs that are going to be attached to travel over the next 10 years. And these types of decisions are just fundamentally not good for the U.S. from an economic perspective. Again, for us, I really want to underscore, we've continued to grow, even as the rest of the travel industry has been impacted by this in the U.S. So for us, it's not a business, it's a values. But I've actually referred to some of these decisions as travel tariffs.
Right.
Right? Once you start to impact travel, you're impacting a significant economic sector in the U.S., and that's just not big companies, right? That's just restaurants that depend on it. That's the small businesses that depend on it. We're speaking out about this, and we have been speaking out about it. We talked about it over when the comments were made about the various countries. I won't use the word that was used when the initial travel ban was announced, when other issues have come up, such as the separation of the parents and children at the border. So we're going to continue to talk about it. It's germane and material to what we stand for from a values perspective. But there are obviously business issues out there.
Right. And it does impact your business if travel is down. I mean, how has travel, from Airbnb's perspective, been impacted not just by the travel ban, but by the American first mentality and President Trump's general anti-immigrant stance?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question. So if you look at, and other travel groups have put out this information, that travel to the U.S. over the last year from international origins has gone down. We've been very fortunate in that we've actually seen our travel from those international origins go up. We think in part that is somewhat reflective of the fact that people are actually coming to stay with other real people. And so in some ways, our model actually works for those folks who want to come and spend time with real people. But yes, overall, when you're out there putting out travel tariffs and travel bans, that's certainly not going to be good for that particular economic sector. But for us, I think this really implicates a much bigger issue, and that is this question of whether we're going to have an open world or a closed world. Right? We face enormous global challenges: climate change, economic inequality, conflict from all sorts of forms. Right? The only way those issues are addressed in a global economy and in a global context is with countries working with one another, and that requires a mindset of an open world. Right? Isolationism to tribalism, it's pretty clear that has never worked, and it's not going to work.
Do you worry about being so closely aligned with Democrats from the perspective of your business, but also some of your employees who may be Republican, who may sympathize with the president's policies?
Well, for us, right, we speak out on issues that go to our values. Travel is inherent to our values. We don't look at this as a DR, Democratic, Republican issue. I think people know where I come from philosophically, but we as a company look at this really as a question of moving forwards or moving backwards. That's the prism that we're using. We don't speak out on every single issue that takes place out there, but we do speak out on those issues that go specifically to our values. And at the center of what Airbnb is all about, it is a sense of belonging, of driving belonging, of promoting belonging, of having people stay with different people from different backgrounds. And so when you get rulings like this, those are just entirely inconsistent with what we're all about.
But surely there are people who work at Airbnb that might disagree.
I think that anyone who works at Airbnb has signed up to support and promote belonging. That is it's one of our core values. We actually have a core value that talks about the power of belonging, the transformative impact of travel. And so when you come to work at Airbnb, you're coming to support a community that is committed to driving belonging. And I think people understand that when issues come up that are going to be inconsistent with that, whether it's here in the US or in other parts of the world, we're going to stand up for the issues and values that our community cares about.
Now that this has happened, is there anything that you're doing behind the scenes on the business side to adapt?
Yeah, well, we're certainly going to be releasing some more information today. In fact, we're going to be releasing a video in a very short time period that actually is going to communicate how strongly we feel about the power of belonging, the power of travel, how important it has been to the American experience and American democracy. And we're going to continue to work on some of the things that we've been out there on, right? We've today announced that we're going to do a matching fund to IRAP, the International Refugee Assistance Program. We're going to continue to find ways to house people who've been displaced. Because again, this all tracks back and rolls back to our values and our purpose and our mission to drive belonging. And so we've spoken out on this. We've consistently spoken out again on it. When this issue pops up, we feel it's our obligation and responsibility to talk about it, and we're going to continue to do that.